We are recording.
We're live.
I think we are.
Cool.
So I'll just have to figure out later what folder it is. Uploaded everything. All right, everybody. This was a bit of a fiasco trying to get this going. This is my client, Doug, who many people have spoken to on various social media. He's been very vocal about being one of my clients for quite a few years at this point. We've done powerlifting meets, and we tried to do this on YouTube and on Facebook. We couldn't get your phone to go live on either one.
No, that's
So
annoying.
we're just going to do this through Skype. And yeah, let's kind of get a feel for this and just tell people a little bit about, I guess, my coaching services, what it's like being one of my clients, what your thoughts are on it. Because again, you have been a client for years. I
Yeah.
mean, we're approaching something like 3 years.
Yeah. Well, I think I initially started working with you is right around like early 2000, like COVID time.
Mhm.
I remember it was. That's when I initially reached out, and yeah, I think you coached me for like a year and a half. I took a few months off,
Right.
just personal stuff and everything, and then I joined back. But no, anyways, when I first started, my bench, it was probably 300-ish,
Yeah.
and that was like a touch and go. That wasn't even a
If
pause
I
bench.
remember, it was 305.
Yeah, that might,
If my
but that
memory is
was
correct. Yeah.
it
Yeah.
wasn't a pause though, because I never did pause benching prior to you. It was always touch and go. So in reality, it was probably lower. But anyways, it was like 300-ish. My deadlift was 405. Squat, it was probably less than 400 to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, yeah, right now my best, we got it into 352 bench, 451 squat, and a 485 deadlift. So
Right.
we added a significant amount over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course,
And that's
those are
pretty much
weight
being at the
lifts.
same weight too, just
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. You
So
stayed like in the 170s for most of
yeah,
that,
I've gotten
170 to
into the mid
180.
180s at times, but
Yeah.
when I first started with you, I was low 180s or something. So we all did this staying at the same weight, relatively speaking.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's quite funny because again, you've been such an outspoken client. There's so many people who talk smack or claim I don't have clients, and uh, a lot of them are very public and open. You're one of the ones who is. So it's always funny when people say that because they're like, oh, well, they're not real people. Well, there you are.
I am a real person. They're gonna say I'm not or something. They're gonna say you're paying me to coach them, or I don't know,
Of
whatever
course,
whatever
there'll
crap
be
they say.
people who say that I'm paying, I don't know where I'm getting, if I don't have clients to, get the money, I'm not sure where I'm getting the money to pay people for this stuff. It's always
Yeah.
fascinating theories that don't really add up.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, as you know, I've talked about, I think, because all that stuff started, what was that, back in 2015, was it maybe? I don't know
Right.
when everything kind of
Yeah.
started with all that stuff,
That's when
but
stuff got really bad.
yeah, so I don't know how much you wanted to talk about all that, but
We probably don't need to go into too much, but it's just funny to laugh about those things.
yeah,
If you wanted to.
no, I know, and it's been what, like 8 years since, so I think
Yeah,
I
yeah.
need to let things go.
Right. Right. And well, and I mean, and that's kind of a point too. People keep bringing up that specific little short period from 2015, and it's
Yeah.
like, well, that's ironic that I have you on here because, people will say, oh, well, he hates veterans or something.
Yeah, and I'm
How much
obviously,
of
as you
a
know,
how much
I
of a
was in the Air
discount do I give
Force.
you for being a veteran? You get the med
Yeah,
discount for coaching.
yeah, I don't know. And so they spin a lot of things, of course, as we said, I don't ever make excuses for whatever you said,
Yeah, yeah,
years ago. And
absolutely.
I know you don't either. You've
Right.
apologized for it, but I'm a big believer in people can change,
Yeah, absolutely.
people can come back from certain things. Not everybody has defined what they've done in the past. And,
Right. I mean,
maybe I'm a little too optimistic or something, but I like to give people chances.
yeah, but you're a perfect example of that. I mean, you have your own stuff you've overcome from the past, and here you are today.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm happy talking about that. I've been sober for, gosh, 3.5 years now, and
Right.
so so yeah. With that said, I wouldn't want people judging me for things that I've done in the past, and because when I was out there doing those things, of course, I didn't do the best things, and I'm a totally different person today, and
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
again, I like to think people can change.
Right. And I mean, the sobriety is kind of a big deal. I mean, in my case, I definitely was a heavy drinker.
Mm.
And I always use the term that I don't say I was an alcoholic because I don't think I was quite an alcoholic.
Mm.
I was definitely going in that direction. Like that would have happened.
Yeah.
And, I think because there's a family predisposition for me. But I mean, for me, that when I stopped drinking completely, there was definitely a change in focus, a change in clarity. And I mean, I haven't had a drink in over 4 years.
Yeah.
But I was also at a point for a little while where I was drinking a whole glass of wine before bed every night. I'm sorry, a whole bottle of wine sometimes, or a half a bottle,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
every night before bed. And, that's, and then using my Meniere's disease as an excuse. Well, it helps with my Meniere's disease. It helps with the vertigo a little bit,
Sure.
but Benadryl can do the exact same thing.
Yeah, no, it's easy to keep doing. It's easy to keep doing the stuff that makes us feel good short term. That's the
Yeah.
gratification stuff. It's harder to make changes. It's harder to do things that don't feel good in the moment. And yeah, so I always give props to people who make changes, no matter what kind of changes it is. I mean, as long as it's positive changes, of
Yeah, as
course.
long as it's positive changes. But I mean, but for me, definitely, as someone who is, again, in your case, you have a history of substance abuse, you've realized that, it changes your entire outlook on life, your personality, the way that you view the world is changed when you stop, abusing whatever substances we're abusing. And in my case, I think I was definitely at the point where alcohol was negatively impacting me professionally, my outlook. It was impacting the message of my videos, I felt like.
Sure.
It absolutely mattered. But for you, that's been a big part of the strength training. If I recall, when you came to me, you were going through your process of that, and
Yeah.
you wanted to use the strength training and the coaching as an extra amount of accountability.
Yeah, because when I first started working with you, I only had a few months sober at the time, actually. Now looking back on it, so
Mhm.
I was just kind of starting the journey,
Right.
and um, for all the people who will be watching this, I've been lifting since 2010, but
Right.
I never I never seriously got into things to the extent of having a coach or competing. But
Right.
but no, it really did help out a lot. It was definitely an integral part of my sobriety and still is for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It was that accountability, because I think if I recall, we had set goals. It was like if you could stay sober for a certain amount of time, you were going to do a powerlifting meet,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
and you reached that goal, and you
Yeah,
did,
no, I
and you
sure
got
did.
on the platform.
Yeah, and I've done two competitions. My
Now
first one
done
was this
too.
past December, and I was top overall. Not just top of my weight class, but top overall. And then I had one on April 30th, I believe it was, and wasn't top overall, but I was top of my weight class.
And you qualified for a lot of events off that one.
Yeah, I qualified for nationals for it's 18 months, right? I believe.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, so I'm obviously not doing it this summer, but I'll be doing it next summer for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're already qualified. You're ready to do it. And so yeah, that's been a really successful journey. Anything you want to talk about with my coaching style or the way that I do things? Because I'm sure people have questions. I've
Yeah.
never really put someone who's been a client up on camera before. I probably need to do more of this.
Yeah. No, it would be good, but yeah, I didn't know entirely what to expect going into it. Obviously, I knew who you were, and all that, and I knew my numbers would probably go up because I knew obviously you had a lot of knowledge on strength training and all that. But it was different than I expected. I think most people going in probably think you're just going to be prescribing just squat, bench, deadlift, all low reps.
Right.
But no, it wasn't like that at all. In fact, 90% of what we do is probably 10 plus reps, it seems.
Hmm.
We even do stuff that's 20 plus reps. And
Yeah.
we don't even do the conventional big three all that often. I mean, we rotate them in
Not
and
for you.
out, of
Yeah.
course.
Well, and that varies from client to client.
Yeah, yeah. And those things are
Yeah.
always going to change. But
You respond well to that system, so that's what I run for you.
yeah, no, I like conjugate a lot just because I'm one of those people that likes to have different lifts throughout the week. And I guess that, trading ADHD, whatever you want to call it.
Of
And
course.
it kind of keeps me going because when we did 5-3-1, it was very repetitive. It was the same thing over and over, and I felt like I was starting to get very bored.
Yeah, and well, that whole sort of system can be for certain people, different personality types.
Yeah.
But you've got the personality type that really thrives on a conjugate type system.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I like setting new goals and new records on each one of those lifts. That's always
yeah.
nice to shoot
And then,
for.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's
then
just
then we have 8, 10, 12 lifts or whatever to set records on. It kind of keeps people in that mindset of PRing. Uh,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it also takes us away from people who psychologically don't handle this as well.
yeah. But I think having objective goals is really important. It's really really helpful. And that's what I think like the big difference is between training for size and looks and training for strength is having those objective goals. Because
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, when you train for size, and I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with it. If somebody wants to do it, that's cool. But it's very subjective.
Right.
It's you're always comparing yourself in the mirror, and it's just hard to see results that way.
Yeah.
But when we do it objectively with strength goals, I know for a fact. Well, if I had a 300 bench, now I have a 350 bench, whatever, I'm stronger. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Right.
And that helps a lot psychologically, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the funny thing, at the end of the day, you still have a good physique. And
Yeah,
people have noted that in a lot of the vlogs with the shirtless stuff and everything. It's like, even though everything is, we push objective numbers, stuff that we can quantify, the end results, and I always tell that to people, look, this sort of systems, we're going to get big, we're going to get jacked by default. Like you can't bench 350 pounds without having a jacked upper body, not a proper pause bench, unless you're that absurdly rare outlier.
yeah,
That 1 in a million guys, but we don't care about him. Like, we shouldn't use him as the example. That one guy somewhere who weighs a buck 60, who has a 400 bench and only 14-inch arms, you know,
yeah. That's
he,
the
he,
exception,
he
not the rule.
he's, yeah, they're a statistical outlier. Every other guy who benches 350 plus is going to look jacked as long as they're at a reasonably athletic body fat.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna have the muscle mass to support it. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I've never really seen anybody that has close to a twice their body weight bench that doesn't look like they lift.
Right,
Yeah,
right. It's absurdly rare.
yeah,
But that's the beauty of a system like this. A lot of my people who don't even compete in powerlifting, they still end up with kind of the physique that they want. And I've
yeah.
seen that with multiple clients, quite a few over the years. Uh,
I
and if
don't
you
think.
think, yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
sorry.
Yeah, because I'm over here lecturing, people hear my videos all the time. It's like, I want to give you more speaking time because you're actually, going to be on as a guest here.
um, yeah, I don't really think there's a huge, and you've talked about this in videos. I don't think there's a huge difference in terms of what somebody would look like if they were training for strength versus size.
Right,
If you all of a sudden were to put me on some sort of bodybuilding routine, I probably wouldn't look a whole lot different. Unless I were to lose body fat or something,
right,
of
right,
course, right? The only difference is working the show muscles, so biceps, maybe side delts a little bit.
right.
So in that case, but other than that, as you've talked about, like I still have to have muscle mass in order to in order to lift the weight that I do. So I
Right.
think most of the stuff when it comes to bodybuilding is more about genetics and insertions and body fat levels.
I absolutely agree. And I
Yeah.
mean, drugs as well, but even then, without the genetics, the drugs still won't do the job for those people.
Oh no, I've
Yeah,
seen a lot of people that are on a gram plus that hardly look like they even lift.
yeah.
And maybe their routine isn't good. Maybe they're not trying hard enough, but certainly genetics play a huge role,
It's a huge
obviously.
role, huge
Yeah.
role. It's probably all of the above, but I mean, there's just a point where they're not going to look that way. Even if they get big, they're still not going to have that look.
No, 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 no. I think, yeah, I think those people who look like that are going to look like that no matter what. Obviously, the drugs help, of course, but
Yeah.
you got to have those insertions. You got to have all those things that kind of go into having that look. A lot of that's out of their control.
Right, and it is, and we can't pick those things. All we can control is really the training and the nutrition side and everything else.
Yeah.
Which we do, and I agree with you. I think that you're right. You wouldn't look dramatically different. If I were to put you in a full bodybuilding type program, you might look a little different, but it
Hmm.
would be fairly subtle.
Yeah, my biceps would be a little bit bigger problem. Maybe not even side delts, because my side delts are relatively big as is in relation
Yeah.
to my size. But and
Well,
plus
yeah,
I've been using that stuff anyhow. But yeah, on the flip side, if you were to take a bodybuilder and have them start doing a powerlifting routine, I don't think they would look a whole lot different either.
I agree.
Again, their body fat would be different just depending on stuff like that. But no, they wouldn't look much different.
Right. Because the overlap is so high. And I think particularly with this style of training that we do,
Mm-hmm.
which is really, really the long game anyways. And there's so many coaches I know who are, masters coaches who they all say the same thing. That at the end of the day, your people who make it even in strength sports and last are the ones who spend more time doing hypertrophy work.
Mm-hmm.
Supplemented into their heavy lifting, because then we're looking at what's the minimum amount of really heavy work I have to do to get my strength maximized, and don't do more than the minimum.
Yeah. And I know some other, powerlifters or people who train for strength go about it that way, and maybe they don't put as much emphasis into hypertrophy, and they may still do well, but it seems like in the long term,
I feel like
a little bit more.
they break easier at the end of the day, because
Yeah,
they spend less time building structures of the body, more time on neural drive, and then they're just beating everything up more. Doing 3 really heavy sets a week versus 10, our injury risks are slightly different, and they're not massive. They're not massively different, but, we look at it and say, okay, so if you have a 50% higher injury risk overall, and even if that risk is very low and you plot that over 15 years, every week for 15 years, it starts to add up to that higher risk, when they could have just been replacing a lot of that work with work to build more tissue, to lay a better foundation, which again also makes us more injury resilient.
Yeah, and it's about being in it for the long run anyhow. Great. It would be nice to get strong a little bit quicker, and of course, but if it's at the cost of a higher injury rate and affecting my future health and all that, I would much rather be in it for the long run.
Yeah, and that's how I view it, and that's how I coach.
Yeah.
I coach for the long game, which you've pretty much figured out at this point.
Yeah, and you're in your mid upper 40s or whatever.
Yeah, I'm 46. I'm going to be 47 this year. So.
Yeah, exactly. And still lift very, very heavy weights. I know some people think they're fake weights, but
yeah, they're clearly not.
No, they're obviously real weights. But regardless,
which is comical.
Very strong, and you've had some minor kind of aches and pains over the years, it sounds, but nothing debilitating.
But they've been learning curves for me though.
Yeah.
Those injuries over time have taught me more about coaching masters lifters. And that's the beauty of that, is those minor injuries and overuse things I've had have been valuable lessons that can then be applied to my clients. And I think it's fascinating because I have those experiences, because I will get other coaches who are like, well, you should do this. And I'm like, I know based on my experience, if I take your advice, my injury rate's going to go up dramatically. Not just a little, it's going to go way up. My injury risks are going to go through the roof.
Yeah, and you found that out through trial and error. I know you
do a lot of
stuff. Some kind of pull-ups seem to bother your shoulders a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just finding out what you are able to do and all. So
yeah, and that's been extremely valuable for coaching, because then when I get those other lifters who are 35, 40, and they're worried about those things, I've already been down that road and have that experience.
Yeah.
And we can look at that from the long game.
Yeah, you coach a few people, and they're what's the oldest person that you coach?
But currently or ever?
Well, I guess both.
Oh gosh, I've coached a couple in their 60s.
Okay.
So I know I've had 62 and I've had a 65 for sure.
Yeah, and that's starting to get up there a little bit. For
and
sure.
And those they compete, like weightlifting and powerlifting. So they're up on a platform.
Yeah, and that goes against the notion that lifting heavy weights inherently causes people to get hurt, or you can't lift heavy weights past a certain age.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah. If you don't know what you're doing, you're not benching correctly, your training and all that, recovery isn't good, then yeah, you're going to get hurt. But that's the biggest reason why I hired a coach to begin with, because I didn't want to get to that point where I A, wasn't making progress, but B, was starting to get hurt and getting
Right.
injuries, because I just didn't know enough to get past where I was
Right.
at the time.
Right. And of course, you're also injury prone in certain areas, and we're having to do stuff to address that over time, just to help alleviate those risks.
Yeah. So for the people who are going to be watching this, it was my hamstrings, really. I first tore my hamstring, I think it was like 2017 or 2016. And it wasn't a major one. It was probably I think a grade 1 would be the best kind of tear, I think. Or is it opposite? Whatever. It was the best kind of tear that you can have. So I was back up in a month or so, but I was trying to do heavy RDLs at that time. I was doing like 315, and it was weight that I couldn't handle at the time. And I just remember feeling a little bit of a snap in my hamstring, and I fell. And then, a few years later, kind of, it happened here, but it's just due to my hamstring weakness. When I first started lifting, I didn't do legs like a lot of guys do at first, and I specifically didn't train hamstrings if I ever did do legs. So they were lacking for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we've had to address a lot of that tendon health and blood flow and everything in those areas.
Yeah.
Your hamstrings, low back. Well, you used to have issues with low back weakness, but
lower back's perfect now.
It is now.
It
was an issue, and I still felt like hamstrings were a factor there.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It was kind of a downstream effect.
Yeah. When I first started with you, when I was in the military, I started developing a protruding disc in my lower back. I think it was between L5 and S1. And it was bothering me for years on ends. Nothing insane, but it was enough to be bothersome. But within months of training with you, it started getting better, because we started training those areas, the glutes.
We addressed it immediately. Right?
Yeah. And it was just something that I wasn't doing, because inherently I thought in my head, well, if it hurts there, maybe I shouldn't do heavy stuff there. And that was sort of the opposite in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So any other thoughts on the coaching style where you get out of? You can even talk about the fact of dealing with stress stuff, because you're one of the long enough lasting clients, one of my competitors, that even your personal life, you bring stuff up to me, and I try to help you through it, and get your head straight so that we can get back on the platform.
Yeah, no, I mean, those stuff play a huge role, personal factors, and just that kind of stuff. As you know, because remember, after my last competition, I was burnt out. I had a lot of stuff going on, some health issues with my brother and relationship type stuff, whatever. So it was all kind of adding up, and it started affecting my training quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So those psychological factors play a huge role. But yeah, no, we've talked about some stuff, and that's been a really good part about this, is just kind of developing a relationship over time and learning about each other, and and it kind of goes back to what we were originally talking about. I just don't think a lot of people know you, or know who you are. They kind of see the surface level stuff that you posted on YouTube and all of that, and once you get to know somebody, a lot of times they're very different than you think they are on camera.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true.
Yeah, you're not what I expected going in, to be honest. But it's been nice. I mean, obviously I have, a big support system in general for the things that I work on, but it's always nice to have other people to bounce things off of and talk to.
Right.
And it's been very helpful.
Yeah, good. And to me, that's part of coaching, especially when we're dealing with competitors. Making sure their heads are straight. Like most of my competitors, we end up having to discuss relationship issues, family issues, all those things, because it impacts competition. It affects our ability to compete. And I view that as, for me as a coach, it's if someone is hiring me to get them ready to compete in something, I have to address those things. It's part of my job. That's what they're hiring me for.
Yeah, exactly.
to get them ready through any means necessary. And if that means that I have to help them with the girl problems, then that's what coach has to do to get that person ready for the platform.
Yeah, whatever it is, whether it is relationship stuff or family things that that we've spoken about, or whatever it is, or my sobriety type stuff. So it could be anything.
Yeah, and to me, that's part of coaching. Coaching is not just, hey, handing them the spreadsheet. And But to be fair, I have clients who I do that with because that's what they seem to need. If they don't want to address the other stuff or don't ever need to address it, then I give them those options. If they're a really serious client.
Yeah.
But a lot of them don't take me up on that. But most of my competitors do, and I think that's one of the big differences. Almost everyone who steps on a platform ends up taking advantage of some of that as a client.
Yeah, and of course, not everybody has to or anything. If
Yeah,
people
of
just
course
want to
not.
have a spreadsheet sent to them, that works too. It just depends on people's needs.
Depends on
Whatever they
people's
want.
needs.
Yeah.
But I mean, I do have those clients, and a lot of them are happy. I have one like that who I've had over 3 years.
That you
I
just have a spreadsheet to?
I give a spreadsheet to. I saw some of his lifts, and I give him the other options there, and he appreciates it, and he just continues doing his thing.
Yeah.
Like I would say, on average, I communicate with him once a week,
Hmm.
but he's happy with the results.
And
And as
that's what
long
it comes
as,
down to. As long as
yeah,
the person paying for it is happy with it, then that really should all that matters, in my opinion.
that's what matters at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people who, the trolls or any of those people that really don't know much about it, I think they don't understand that. Like if I wasn't getting something out of this, I wouldn't be paying you. I would have been done after the first month or two.
Yeah.
As I said, I didn't know what to expect going in. I really didn't. A lot of it was just to see how you were and see if I got anything out of it. And I have a lot, so that's why I stick with it. So
Right. Yeah.
it's really
Well,
that simple.
your list started going up immediately. I think we were hitting like lifetime PRs within 4 weeks.
It was very, very quickly.
It was
Yeah.
fast. Yeah.
Yeah, because at that point I had been lifting almost 10 years, I would say, and I made progress. I still absolutely looked like I lifted, and I was, I had some strength in certain areas, I guess, but I wasn't where I wanted to be by any means, and I had plateaued out for a couple of years, and I just didn't have enough knowledge to get past that, like late and intermediate stage, I guess I was probably
Right.
at, or early advanced, whatever it could have been.
Yeah. I would say it was definitely early advanced on the bench because you were benching 300.
Yeah, so I guess in that I was, but yeah, I just didn't have enough knowledge to get past that. So I thought, well, it would make sense to work with somebody who knows a bit more than me.
Yeah.
So, and obviously, it's worked.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you've definitely been one of my good clients. But that's one of the things I always appreciate. It's that I have people who are good clients, but then I have people who, in your case, you've gone up to bat for me, on various social media when people are talking smack because you're very active on multiple platforms
Yeah,
and, very active on social media. And that's one of the things, when people talk smack, you've always kind of jumped in and said, hey, wait a minute, one off, you don't know him. Number two, I'm one of his clients, uh, I
yeah.
actually know him to some extent. We've had a lot of conversations, in video calls over the years.
And I've offered to talk with those people before. I've offered to, talk with them over video chat or whatever, just to talk about these things more. Nobody ever takes me up on it.
Right.
Ever. There was one person who reached out.
Which is why we did this. Yeah, that's why we're
Yeah, there
doing
was somebody who
this.
reached out like a few weeks ago, I think it was, and he was nice about it. He reached out and he wasn't rude in his message, but he's just never gotten back to me. And I would like to think if people truly want to get to know more about you and your clients and my experience, that they would actually take me up on that.
Yeah.
But they seem to be
But but
interested.
but at the end of the day, they don't.
Yeah,
That's not the goal. That's not the goal of any of the people who do stuff like that, whether it's to me or to anyone else. It's
yeah,
their goal is to push whatever negative view they have and hatred of a person, and they don't care about what the truth is. It's irrelevant to them.
yes,
It's
yeah,
not it's not part of the equation, because at the end of the day, for most people out there who people have a negative view of, they're probably, unless they're in prison for something bad, they're probably nowhere near as bad of a person as you perceive them to be. Like that
yeah.
would
No,
always be the truth. You know, there are very, very few truly bad people in this world.
yeah, and I've said this to you before. If everything that we did in private was publicized and for the whole world to see, I don't think a single person would have something, that they wouldn't have something that wouldn't look good to the world. We all
Of
act
course.
different in our private lives, when we're around family or, around girlfriends or whatever. Like we act different than we do at work or we do out in public.
Right.
So every single person that is going to be watching this. They have something that they've said or done in private that wouldn't look good if it was publicized.
Oh,
And so and I'm not saying those are bad people by any means, just how we react different.
It's such human nature.
Yes.
Yes. Of course, in my case, a lot of this stuff is not even true that's being said that I've said or done. So that's the ironic part in my case.
Well, that's a big part of it too. Yeah, a lot of things are just totally made up. Some things are exaggerated. There are some things that you did do but have changed on. So it's it's not as black and white as I like to make it out to be.
Of course not. But I don't think people realize that too. At least 50% of it is completely fabricated, like no bearing at all in reality, from what I can see. Like I have no idea where they even come up with it. But it's what do you do? But I think that's a good thing though. Put clients on like this, let people kind of discuss their experiences. And yeah, if you want to do more of these in the future, we definitely can. Just squeeze them in further down the road. But yeah, it was just kind of good to let you talk about it. Is there anything else you wanted to say just about the coaching experience and before we wind it down?
No. I mean, it's you're always very interactive. You're always like very, very quick to respond. When I message you, I don't ever have to like wait to hear back for hours at a time or anything unless something major is happening.
Yeah.
So the communication's there. We always have chances to Skype if need be. Which we don't really do as much anymore. We did more at the beginning. If I ever run into any issues, whether it's just physical things as far as aches or pains or whatever, we usually work around it. So I've gotten everything that I've needed out of it and more. And you definitely charge. I don't know what coaches charge in general, but as far as I'm aware, some charge $300, $400, $500, $600. So for what I do pay and what I get, it's 100% worth it.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, because you came on when I was charging $250. I do $300 for new people, but then you also had the vet discount. So
yeah.
So there was all of
that. And I, as far as how you coach as well, I know a lot of people have said, I've heard this said about you is like, well, why do you need to have somebody coach you? There's nothing that he gives you that's anything special. And, I think that could be said about like any kind of coach or whatever. Yeah, I can probably do a lot of research on my own and all that. The whole point of getting a coach is to, work with somebody who knows more than me and drive those things. And, so for some reason they unfairly go after you when it comes to coaching services, but not, Greg Doucette or any of
who charges way more than I do.
A lot more, and I don't think he's probably giving any more. In fact, I'm sure he's giving less.
Right.
I would guess.
Right.
So, but yeah, no, I mean, I love it. It's been years now, and I have no plans on quitting.
All right, fantastic. Yeah. All right, I appreciate you coming on here and doing this, Doug. So I'm going to go ahead and wind this down, and I will talk to all of you guys next time.
All right, Jason, have a good one. Okay.
Yeah, you too.